What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 108 of Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, in a fun-filled night. And first of all, of course, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Thank you guys all for taking time out of your busy weeks to enjoy another episode of Bettin and Boozin on the HHH Racing Podcast. Guys, tonight we're going to cover Churchill Downs Thanksgiving Saturday and everything they have to offer, including many two-year-old stakes on the docket, as well as some very, very nice two-year-old main special weights that we'll be talking about. So a lot of really good betting opportunities to come this Saturday. Of course, if you missed it last night, Howard, Pete, and Paul of Picks and Ponies, usually our Thursday show, of course, Thursday is Thanksgiving this week, so they covered it on Tuesday, yesterday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, talking about the Friday and Thursday stakes coming up at Churchill Downs this weekend, as they always have a big episode, a big time for Thanksgiving week. So tune into that if you missed that already. And of course, tune into the show after this show at 9:30 p.m. Eastern with Pacific Horseplayers, talking about all the stakes action out west with host Noah Maher and Ryan Anderson. Guys, if you guys are new here or you find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't subscribed, why not? You're already coming back anyway. Last week, I took a clip of it. There was over 61% of you guys coming back to watch these videos and not subscribed again. Why not? It's completely free to do. Helps us out a lot, and you're already coming back anyway. Please go down below the video player here on YouTube. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Like I said, really helps us out and is completely free to do. Also pushes these videos out into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring like-minded horse players like yourself to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. As you guys can probably tell, a little bit under the weather right now, so I do apologize. I'll be muting myself intermittently to blow my, all the nasty stuff that comes with being sick. So hopefully it doesn't sound too bad, but we can bypass that and get still right into the good handicapping. Of course, every single episode that's posted here on YouTube is also available in audio form. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor are the places to go do so. So please go rate, review, and subscribe over there. Of course, I have new socials that I've been talking about for the past few weeks. So I made a TikTok and an Instagram for Bettin and Boozin at Bettin and Boozin Podcast. Both, again, on TikTok and Instagram. I post schedule updates for the week. I post highlights, best bets, everything that can be shortened into short form content goes over there at Bettin and Boozin Podcast. So please go follow us over there. And of course, we have our power picks that go every single Saturday. It's price plays, spot plays, pick five grids, everything you need to be successful on any given Saturday. HHH Racing Podcast Power Picks have you covered. 2 full tracks. And again, like I said, you get it every single Saturday, and it's all done through Patreon, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Only $4 a weekend for 2 full tracks. And we have a $2.15 ROI for over 700 picks since February of 2021. So we do our homework, and they are very affordable and very profitable. And of course, if you want to see previous editions of those power picks before you buy them, or just want to learn more about the podcast, hhhracingpodcast.com is the place to do so. Only one person joining me today, but it's the one that you guys all love, all been waiting for. And of course, for this weekend in college football, it's the person that you want here. It's the man from Ohio State University, Charlie Freeman. Charlie, what's going on, my man?
Not much. Very excited for this weekend. Don't get me wrong. It's nice to have, Thanksgiving break as a reset before finals and get some time off. But more importantly, there's, big horse racing, especially one of the races we're covering for that Derby Future Poll, which everyone should pay attention to. I don't know if you mentioned, Kyle, I think it's like the 28th until the 1st or somewhere around there. I know Howard talked about it. And then obviously the game. So, very exciting weekend coming up.
Well, no, absolutely. And you talked about the game. Of course, Michigan, Ohio State plays this weekend. And me having my glory last year, Chuckles having his glory, hopefully this year. However, it will be ruined once we beat them on Saturday. But that is probably a few and far between dream. But also, Kentucky Derby Future Pool 2 is opened up on Twin Spires, or will be opened up tomorrow. Howard talked about the podcast pick on Monday. So if you haven't checked that out, check that one out after the show as well. Guys, we'll go to the chat, then we'll get right into the handicapping. Don't want to waste too much time. Katie is here, of course, as always. TC Marco, my friend, you haven't seen your name live at the beginning in a while. You were here last week, so thanks again for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. Hit 2 out of 3 pick 5s last week. Want to finish with a big one. Let's do it, my friend. Good luck this weekend. Of course, hopefully we can give you a little bit of insight. Paul Conlon, gather around the table. Pilgrims, Paul, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Ralph Conti, to you as well. Greatly appreciate it. And thanks, TC. Appreciate it. We had a merch drop. I think it was at the beginning of this year where we had B&B merch sweatshirts. I wear the quarter zip a lot. You see it. I'm wearing my my Disney Lion King shirt today, but I wear a quarter zip. I have t-shirts and stuff like that. So hopefully, if you guys weren't here for that merch drop, hopefully we'll come out with one sooner rather than later. Guys, let's move right into the handicapping. If you guys are new here or you just haven't used the chat before, please do. Please go on YouTube. It's at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, and you can type anything in the chat box, especially if you look at these races. We would love to hear your opinions, and the same goes for you guys watching over on X. Guys, let's move right into the handicapping. And late pick 5 on Saturday at Churchill Downs starts in race number 8. And Charlie, we don't see each other's picks before the show starts. You send them to me. Of course, I have to input them into StreamYard. However, you don't see my picks at all. And my handicapping is done usually earlier in the week. Mine was done, I think, this week on Monday. So I always go back through it the day of. That's just my handicapping. I love to preliminary handicap the races on Monday, get all my picks together, then go back in the day of we do these shows. And, if I need to tweak something or I like something more, taking a second look at it, that's always what I love to do. But again, Charlie has no idea who I've picked, and I will let you know this won't be the only race we're very similar on today, Charlie. We're both going with 6, 7 as our top 2. You have the 10 in third. I have the 8 in third. So I'll bring up the Equibase right now as my presentation went away. So give me 2 seconds here. There it goes. Pops up there. Full field of 12 in a main special weight going 1 mile on the turf for 2-year-olds. And again, this is a common theme today as well, as you see a lot of these good 2-year-old races and full fields to boot. Morning line favorite is the number 3, Hard as Life. Gerardo Corrales and Michelle Nihei, I believe is actually how you say that. 7-2 on the morning line, and we have that horse nowhere. We are both going with the number 6, the second choice on the morning line, Power of Will, Joel Rosario and Bill Mott, and the third choice is the number 10, Anagata, for Edgar Morales and John Ennis, who we also have nowhere. So we are going with second choice, Charlie. We do have a decent amount of prices underneath. Actually, you do have Anagata in third, excuse me. I'm going with number 8, Flexible Terms, who's a first-time starter for Brendan Walsh in third. But Charlie, 6, 7 for us. 2 of the top choices, not the most creative. However, we are going against 2 of the top 3 favorites, at least on top and top 2. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think Power of Will is super interesting. Had a bit of a funny effort, but that didn't bother me at all because I think something we kind of talk about a lot is it's more so a pleasant surprise if a horse takes to Kentucky Downs, especially if it's a first-time starter at Kentucky Downs. Usually it's a throwaway race and one where it's more so if they run really poorly, you're like, well, I understand. But what I thought was so interesting about Power of Will is, he stayed on the whole time. They set some very fast fractions. I know it doesn't show red numbers, but to go 23-1 and then go 45-4 to the half is not slow. But what I thought was so interesting about this horse is when you got to the actual gallop out after, it seemed like he maybe overdid it too early on trying to chase those fast leaders and then kind of weakened in the stretch. Once they got to the gallop out at the end, he actually went by the ultimate winner of the race. You could kind of see it in the background. And, something as I've tried to get better as a handicapper, especially with these earlier on horses, is trying to, watch the race to its entirety, including the gallop out and watching that. And I just thought it was a really impressive gallop up. But more importantly, I just thought it was a really decent debut. I get the 52 buyer is not something to, freak out about, but I thought it was a fine figure. Again, it was the debut for this horse, so I think there's plenty of room to step forward, has the breeding as well for it. Yes, you can see the 3 right there. That was the horse in this race as well, just galloping out far ahead. And I just thought Power of Will made a ton of sense in this spot and is working forwardly.
as well. And Bill Mott, 1 for 18, obviously probably doesn't have his best strings in Kentucky. However, this one was at Kentucky Downs and stayed in Kentucky. Not too well known for his first time starters is Mr. Bill Mott. However, second time out does tend to be a little more fruitful for him as well, with that 47-4 work on November 23rd, Charlie, which you touched on. And obviously it's Kentucky Downs, right? And playing longer than a mile, the weird configuration, all the above. I like, and that was one of my big angles at Keeneland, actually, which ended up working out pretty well for me, was horses coming from Kentucky Downs, showing a little bit of talent and then kind of just fading off and coming back into this race. And speaking of that Kentucky Downs race, that the horse that ran second ended up coming back to win. Lucky Mischief ended up coming back to win at Keeneland, as mentioned, for Dallas Stewart, and then ran in an allowance. Didn't run too bad, although fifth by 2 1/4 lengths. So coming out of a pretty live race, as it seems like on paper, second time out, have a huge chance to be able to take another step forward. I really like Power Will this spot. However, I would not take anything lower on this horse at then 4-1. Charlie, we both have the number 7 Culture War in second. Katie says this horse is a stone cold single. So obviously Katie has a lot of pride in this horse. This horse ran very well at Kentucky Downs in this meet, then came back to Keeneland, stayed on, but didn't run the best race, and then absolutely hated the dirt last time out. Coming back to the turf where this horse wants to be, has the figures, just has to put it together on the win end.
Yeah, and for me, I just draw a line through that dirt effort. I mean, the bright side, obviously, is, Whiskey Shot is a horse that's potentially on the Derby Trail. We've seen is on some of those pools. Obviously, also with the War of Will being the sire, you would typically more so think turf. But again, early on in the career, you can absolutely afford to take a chance with a horse and say, you know what, let's try the dirt. And you can see after the debut, took plenty of money second time out on the turf and then didn't take money on the dirt. So it seemed like the public kind of had a feeling as well that Culture War wasn't really meant for the dirt and is truly a turf horse, which is what I saw in the replays as well. I thought the debut was super impressive at Kentucky Downs. Another one where, again, 23-1, 46-2. They were not going slow, and this one was staying within a few lengths the whole time. And, a little bit different, and I guess you could argue better than our 6 horse that we have on top, was this one actually stayed on the whole way and didn't end up drifting back. The main difference, though, for me is that I thought that the second effort on the turf was a bit of a step back. It was definitely a weird race in that, for Keeneland, which tended to be kind of, more closer favoring, and where like the speed, was kind of, they were flying on the front and then closers would, take advantage. They didn't really go fast in that race, as you could see with the blue figures we talk about. They walked, and obviously States Rights was a horse that got hammered. I know for me coming into this race, I had that horse, I think, in first or second with Authentic Gallop. So I really liked Culture War. And I think back on the turf makes a ton of sense in this spot.
I agree. I think this is a pretty tough main race. If it's not these two, I think it could really be anybody other than the 6 or the 7. We then mentioned the 3. Well, I'll talk about quickly. Hard as Life, the 7-2 favorite. I don't know if he'll end up going off as the favorite. The breeding's really nice. However, just really hasn't run to, and he hasn't been backed either in either of his races. Now he's going to come back to here going, 7-2 morning line. I don't see that. I mean, no one's come back out of that race, so it's not necessarily like coming out of a very live race, although Executor was a well-backed favorite that day, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. 2.5 to 1, so well-backed on the win end. However, again, this might be a little bit of a different beast. However, that 64 does make sense in terms of comparativeness. It's just got Hard as Life has to put it together, and I'm not willing to trust that at 7-2. Charlie, you can feel free to touch on that as well. Anagata is a horse at 5-1 that Charlie will touch on in third. There's and predecessor Pioneer of the Nile out of Tappet for Asmussen. Windshell is definitely not out of it either. There's just a lot of ways you can go if you don't like the 6 or the 7 in this race. But Anagata is a horse you have in third, Charlie, for John Ennis and Edgar Morales.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. To be honest, I kind of thought the 6 and 7, we talk about ABCs kind of style. I felt like those two were, my clear A's, and it seems like we're all liking that. And then really, I think there's a bunch of horses you could argue for B's and C's. Ultimately, I wanted to try to put a price in third, but I just couldn't leave this 10 out. This was one who, had Two disappointing efforts to start. I mean, admittedly, with the Ellis Park one was 33-1, but also I think a little bit of a concern that you're starting a first-time starter and an optional claiming. But then after that, we always kind of talk about how big of a plus it is when you see a horse that was in an optional claiming and then they put them up to the maiden special weight, because that kind of shows, maybe they actually think they do have something. And they were right. They flew in that Kentucky Downs race. Again, 23 and change, 45 and change. 110 and change. Like, they were flying when I watched that replay. And this 10 stayed on the whole way and then just didn't have it late. And then last time came out of the same race actually as the 7 that we have. And this time with a slower pace was, again, forwardly placed and they didn't go by. I think my main concern, and that's why I downgraded this one to third despite finishing ahead of the 7 that we both have, is I thought the effort 2 back was excusable to not go all the way because they went fast. And I thought, maybe we'll just the speed got to the horse, but then last time got a perfect trip and then kind of stayed in place. And it's very early on, it's a 2-year-old. Well, he only has 3 starts, but I am a little nervous if he's just one of those that doesn't really, have that devastating kick or ability to move up and kind of just likes to go around the track in place.
Yeah, and the other thing is, obviously, time form is not fully reliable because this is a main race. A lot of it, some couple first-time starters, some that have only run once. So time form is not necessarily your best tool in a race like this. The pace projector, that is. However, I think there's a pretty decent amount of speed in this race. And you kind of mentioned why I didn't like the horse, which, again, that's why the game is beautiful the way it is. Started out optional claiming, restricted optional claiming, might I add, which restricted usually buyer's price, not well backed at all, didn't run that well, got off slow. However, next time out showed speed at Kentucky Downs, ran well and restricted, but still not backed that well. And then came back at Keeneland and even off that race at Kentucky Downs, where the horse only got a 49, might I add, jumped up to a 72, but was not backed at 38-1. So at 5-1, I'd be willing to look other places in this race, especially if I think the pace doesn't set up. I went with flexible terms in third, and TC Markham also said the 8's worth a look. Constitution's a solid sire for first-time starters. Owner Fergus Galvin is a total horseman. I liked flexible terms for 2 reasons. Brendan Walsh, the reason why I don't have him on top with the breeding I'm going to show is because if you go to first-time starters just for Brendan Walsh in general, 12%, 44 for 379. However, even if you go to his better tracks, which are at the Kentucky circuit, he's still at that 12% range, right? 22 for 237. And it goes down even farther when you go at Churchill. Usually he ramps him up for Keeneland. You go at Churchill, he's 7 for 79, only 20 of them in the money. So under 30% in the money, however, even way less than on the win end. However, try your luck, which was out of looking at lucky. Look at this horse. Very long on the turf, did run well at the mile distance as well. Ran third in a listed stake at Indiana at a mile and the 16th. This horse ran very well, broke its maiden at Keeneland by 9 1/4 lengths. So the breeding is there for the number 8 flexible terms. Just with Brendan Walsh's first time out numbers, that's what's making me put this horse a little bit towards the back burner, at least in second or third. However, I have to respect this horse. Gaff Leone hops aboard as well. Brendan Walsh is 7 for 33 on this Churchill meet. So definitely one that I'm going to respect and have at least somewhere in the money. I'm going 6, 7, 8. Charlie's going 6, 7, 10 to start off in a really hard race in the late pick 5, especially if the 6 or the 7 does not win. Charlie, let's move on to race number 9. And this one is the grade 2 Goldenrod Stakes. However, this race is only 7 horses. It is the shortest race in this sequence in terms of field size, going for $400,000, a mile and a 16th on the dirt with a pretty heavy morning line favorite in the number 3, Good Cheer, a Godolphin runner, Luis Saez, and Brad Cox, as I bring it up 4-5 on the morning line. The second choice is the number 4, Quiet Side, Gaff Leone, John Ortiz at 3-1. Or no, sorry, second choice is Eclatant for Florent Giroux and Brad Cox. Third choice is Quiet Side at 3-1. You'll see Charlie and I are both going exactly the same here again. Only 7 horses, and those 3 really look to be a pretty decent bunch above the rest in this field. Since it's such a short field, we will go over every horse. I'll show the time form first, Charlie, though, which should really set up for the number 3, who we both have on top, Good Cheer.
Yeah, people in the chat were kind of talking. I know we were talking at the beginning of the show, horizontals, playing pick fives, whatever. I think with that last race we covered, how you and I kind of talked about you could just go 6-10 or you could really spread. I think this is a great opportunity where if you want to spread in the race before, I think this is one where you could go a lot more narrow and, go one, just go with a single or even go 2 deep here if you have enough of a stance. I agree with you that these 3 are a clear cut above the rest, but I think even within that, I think Good Cheer is just a different animal from the rest of these. This is one that I know Howard, because I saw him, he was in the chat at one point, loved Good Cheer when I think we either covered I think we had covered this horse on that September 28th race. And Howard made it very clear what he thought and, told everyone to not worry about, Cox having this horse in a $32,000 maiden special weight at Indy, and that he doesn't, only run his good horses in Kentucky, and he'll have horses debut in Indy. And he couldn't have been more right. I know there were some big scratches in that Churchill Downs race, but still, to win by 17 against any field is impressive. And then to come back after that, and I know it wasn't some graded stakes, but still to win that stakes race and, show a different dimension also, to sit a little bit closer to the lead and only be a couple lengths off and still have enough kick to clearly clear and go by against a much tougher field than those first 2 races. I just think she's continuing to improve. And I think, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but she could be one to start to look out for on the Oaks Trail.
I mean, I love that. The one thing I do like about this horse is that Cox started her at a mile, and at Indy, that's 2 turns. So the fact that then she's mile 16, mile to 16th, I completely agree with you, Charlie. I mean, I love when these trainers start them out going longer, which is what, they really think about down the line. Cox is always going to have a plan for a horse like this, especially at a 2-year-old filly. So I like, and you talked about the Indiana angle, right, Charlie? It's kind of like Chad Brown and Monmouth for me, where, even if he thinks the horse is lesser at the time, the horse can still be someone good. Who was started at Monmouth that was, oh my God, one of the really good Chad fillies recently started her career at Monmouth, and she became one of his best fillies ever. I don't know why that name is slipping my mind. Chad, of course, if you can help me out as usual, I'd greatly appreciate it. But Good Cheer, guys, like I said, it's complete single for me in this one. I showed the time for him. There's going to be early speed in this race, right? And Churchill with the long stretch, everything just seems to point to this horse running a big one. Godolphin and no Florent Giroux. So that's a W in my mind. Of course, Good Cheer. Don't have to say too much about her. Quiet Side, Charlie, is the horse we both have in second. Ran a good spin away behind Immersive, of course, your Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies champion, and in the Alcibiades as well behind Immersive and Quick Kick, who we thought was going to run a pretty decent one in the Breeders' Cup as well. Of course, didn't end up running a winning effort. However, did run a decent third in that race behind Immersive and Vodka with a twist. So again, Charlie, just running against very nice horses. Just maybe, again, a good horse running into another monster.
No, I completely agree. I think Quiet Side can't really catch a break, but I will say what I think works more towards her in this spot is, as you touched on, we have some horses in here that have only been on turf. We have horses in here that have, kind of been mixing and matching. A lot of them have been running in, just made in special weight so far and really have been running against much weaker fields. And I think Quiet Side, but obviously, running in 2 grade ones has by far and away the best strength of schedule. And I do think if someone were to upset Good Cheer, Quiet Side would be the one that fits. Yeah. Both from a competition standpoint, but also a trip standpoint. Because obviously Quiet Side's going to get the jump on Good Cheer, but isn't going to be, quite as forwardly placed as the Rail Horse or some of those to the outside. So I will say, I think if Good Cheer were to lose, Quiet Side would be the horse I would throw on a ticket or play a backup ticket and use Quiet Side on with less horses, obviously. But she hasn't really done anything wrong. Had that 80 by her top on debut, matched it second time out, and really visually to me hasn't really taken a step back. But I also don't think that 74 means by any means that that's her best or that she's topped out. I just think, like you said, the reality is she's just run against some grade 1 horses. But in this field, outside of Good Cheer, I don't really see any grade 1 material horses. So I think she could very easily run another second.
I mean, tell you what, Charlie, if they're giving you like 3-1 on this exacta, 4-1 on this exacta, that's something easily willing. So, I mean, Quiet Side, this was a race at Saratoga that from here, I mean, she looked like a winner for sure. And this is Immersive on the outside at 12-1 that day.
I would say, and bet down to favoritism.
Yeah, and ended up just grinding it out past her. It's immersive, always does. But again, a pretty big run there from her going 111-2 as well to the 3/4. Again, I think she's a very nice horse. If there's one horse to upset Good Cheer, I completely agree with you, Charlie. Just a matter of I don't know if she's as good as a horse than Good Cheer, especially if Good Cheer is going to get the setup I envision for her. The number one, Eclatante, is the horse we have in third. The other Cox runner, Giroux, aboard in this one. Again, buyer figure wise, she's even above a horse like Quiet Side in this race. However, again, you talked about strength of schedule. I think that definitely favors Quiet Side.
Yeah, I think I have, two big concerns. I mean, obviously, where you have to give credit to this one is Beat La Cara, who's a very nice filly on debut. Then came back and got hammered down to, 1-2 at Keeneland and a nice optional claiming field, and hasn't really done anything wrong. I just think my big concerns for her is the setup is not what she wants at all, especially with her on the rail. I feel like she's going to have to send even harder because I don't think, from what I've seen from her running style, she's really proven yet that she can truly sit. Mm-hmm. Obviously, last time was able to be just off the leader, but I think in a space like this, it won't work well. And the other concern that I think we have to see, and again, it's more of a knock of what might happen or what I think you and I would agree we could envision happening than anything she's actually done wrong, because I don't think she's put a step wrong. I mean, she's 2 for 2. She has 2 solid buyer figures. I just think the other concern, and I'm sure you share this with me, is also getting this distance. This one, as you talked about, is kind of the opposite of Good Cheer, where Good Cheer debuted at a mile and they knew that horse was a closer, that she was always going to want distance. This one horse debuted at 5.5 and then they went to 6. It's not like they went to 5.5, saw the horse win going away and say, let's, stretch out to, even 6.5, 7, or get anywhere near a mile. So I think both the pace situation, some of the class of the 3 and 4, and then also having to get this much distance. I just think at 5-2, there's too many questions for me to want to put this one anywhere near on top.
I agree. And the downside scenario was a sprinter as well. Did run well at Kentucky Downs 6.5 and a mile and 16th at Churchill. However, this sibling summary, 1-for-1 a dirt route for this horse, and that was at Gulfstream Park going the mile in the Mucho Macho Man in 2021. Mutzabek for Todd Pletcher and Shadwell Stable. The other thing is that this horse won the Bourbon in 2020, going a mile and 16th, however, on the turf. So this, she has produced distance, however, was a sprinter in her own right, and maybe her horses are better going, and Gulfstream, that mile is 1 turn mile as well. So that's something to also keep in mind. I agree with you, Charlie. Above all else, the price to me is too short to be able to take this horse over. Even Good Cheer at 4-5, I think, is a better bet than Eclatante at 5-2. I could be completely wrong, but for what Good Cheers ran, I'd much rather have her. Just to me, it's kind of just a single and move on. Maybe Quiet Side on a backup ticket, but Good Cheer and move on for me. And obviously, Charlie has expressed to feel the same way. Real quick, flexing to B again, 67 buyer, all on turf. Now switching back to the dirt. English Channel doesn't necessarily seem to me like she wants the dirt. However, she's been working well. Going to have to take a step up, though. Sturgeon Moon ran well last time out at Keeneland. However, at 32-1, going to probably be around that same price. Going to have to show. However, Paulo Lobo set a very, very good Churchill meet, 6 for 13 in the small limited barn in Kentucky that Paulo Lobo has. John Ennis, 67, 68, definitely going to have to improve to be up, and especially with that pace scenario, as I mentioned, not to her liking. And Flashware, Thomas Vance ran in restricted fillies, won very well last time, however, going to need to show improvement again in this short field, but still might be able to be, rounding out your trifectas and superfectas. I'm going 3-4-1, and Charlie is also going 3-4-1. Charlie, let's move on to race number 10 here. This is the intermittent race. It's a nice listed stake, though. It's the Fern Creek for 2-year-old fillies. Sprinting 6.5 furlongs on the dirt. Draws a nice field of 11 as well. And the favorite is the number 1, Echo Sound. Pretty decent favorite. Luis Saez and Rusty Arnold at 2-1. Second choice is the number 9, Impulse Buy, 5-2, Gaff Leone and Rudy Brissett. Third choice is the number 4, She's So Spicy, for Paco Lopez and Jose D'Angelo. Charlie, we're different, but we're not. We're different, but we're not. We do at least have different horses on top. However, we do have the same top 3. I warned you guys at the top of the show, guys. I mean, Charlie, we need to play something together. We have to do it surely because we're.
And we could do a cheap ticket. We
we
agree at 6-7. We agree the three's a single, and we got the same top three here.
Really could. DRF signed me out for some ungodly reason. So, but you are going against me on top you're going with the other choice, the other top choice in the morning line, the number 9 Impulse Buy, while I'm going with the morning line favorite, the number 1 Echo Sound. So finally for today, you get to tell me why I'm wrong and why Impulse Buy is going to win this race.
Yeah, I want to start by just acknowledging Echo Sound because that is the morning line favorite. I don't think she's done anything wrong by any means. I just think the setup could be perfect for Impulse Buy. I like that this one can actually, she can be on the outside and get the right setup. I thought Echo Sound's first 2 efforts, the figures were pretty accurate. They weren't anything great, but she got the job done. And I thought she really burst onto the scene last time out, was, showing a different side of her. It was her first time really rating and trying to sit off the pace. And despite flying, it's not like, she was closing. She was still right behind and then went right by. So I thought that was a super impressive effort from her. She also took a lot of late money, I remember, from watching that race live. So I think she makes a ton of sense. However, I think Impulse Buy could just end up being the better animal. I think the one thing working against Impulse Buy is the distance. I think she would benefit from going a little bit longer. I liked her a lot at 7. I thought she ran fine last time out at a mile. They drilled the quarter and the half. I'm kind of surprised that it's not showing red numbers. I mean, you're going under 23 and under 46 for a mile. That's on the dirt. That's pretty damn fast. Was right behind Stunner, who I don't know if you can pull up Stunner's history, but I know Stunner was an expensive and pretty nice horse in her own right, and she's had some, very solid efforts. Yeah, you can see after that debut where, believe it or not, she was less than even money against Senza Parole, who's a horse that, we know how good that horse is potentially going to be when she comes back. But losing to Stunner is nothing to be embarrassed about. I think Stunner is one of the most talented fillies in their division. But 2 back, 1 by 11. I mean, she was dominant. Lost to Liam in the dust on debut, who came back to be a nice horse as well. I just think she's had by far the hardest strength of schedule. And I think with her tactical ability and where she can kind of sit, I think she could just be the best horse here. The only question, again, is at this short of a distance, can she catch the 1?
That was my thing with her, Charlie, is that if the pace does heat up, she's never really passed anybody. That's my only problem with her, is that, she was 3rd out of the gate, but she's been 2nd and finished 2nd. She's been 3rd by a neck and finished 2nd by 2 1/4. And the one time she won by 11, like she was on the lead by herself in a pretty easy, 45 and 3 for Keeneland going 7. So for me, I thought the 1 Echo Sound just had the edge, because if it was going to heat up, the 1 showed that she can sit and go by, especially last time, as you pointed out, in the Myrtlewood. That was my thinking. I think the 9 might, even if the 9 is a better animal, I just don't know if she's going to get the setup that she needs in this race. However, if Echo Sound on the rail just sits the pocket and they're not going out of the chute, or they're going kind of out of the chute in this race, I'd much rather have the rail going 6.5 than going 7 or a mile at Churchill Downs for that type of chute angle. But Echo Sound, I feel it can just sit a really nice, easy trip. Did you kind of take that into consideration, Charlie, or am I just being a little bit too nitpicky on Impulse Buy?
No, I think a lot of what you said makes sense, but I think part of my pushback would be, again, cutting back to 6.5. I think naturally she's going to sit, because a lot of these others that have only been sprinters, like your 1 horse, for example, again, I thought she looked a lot better last time out than her first 2 efforts. Not that she did anything wrong, but more so that she was for real. And I like that she showed the ability to sit, but that was also at 6, and now she's stretching out. You look at the 2 horse who came out of that race, didn't run well, but that one's going to go forward. You look at the 3, hasn't done anything really since the debut, but that horse is going to fly. The Gulfstream horse, who we'll talk about in a second, who I was very impressed with, that one's going to fly. Praying, who ran against Echo Sound, is going to fly. I just see a lot of horses that are pure speed that have only been going, in that 6 or 6.5 or 5.5 range. And then I see a horse that, I don't think truly will end up needing the lead and has just sit off. And I hear your argument with the not ability to pass. And I know we talked about that earlier. My one pushback would, for me, visually, it looks less like she can't pass and more like she's just run into monsters that nobody can catch. Again, being stuck behind Liam in the dust and being stuck behind Stunner is nothing to be embarrassed about. If she, kind of fell back, I'd get it. But I thought she kind of stayed with it when the rest of the field couldn't. So that doesn't bother me. Now, moving into the 4, because I also saw we had a comment about it. She's So Spicy was incredibly impressive. I remember actually, because I was just bored and doing what I love to do best, which is just tuning into random low-level Gulfstream races because I'm Mr. South Beach. And I didn't touch this race, but the 12-horse Champagne Brunch was actually who I was tuning in for because the horse was taking a ton of money. And I was like, all right, let's see if this horse is legit. And then the 9 gets the break. The 12 gets right behind as they're approaching the turn.
This is the most Paco ride of Paco rides, by the way.
Oh, of course.
He's like standing straight up.
Yeah,
look back. Hold on. Wait for it. It's coming again. 2 look back. Yeah. It's the same thing. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. But so I was tuning in for that one. And when the 12 was ranging up off the turn, I'm like, okay, we're going to have a real battle here. And then we didn't have a real battle because even though Paco was too busy looking behind him and not asking, She's So Spicy just ran away. And I mean, the reality is they didn't set slow fractions. To finish in 1:10.3 in hand on debut was a really fast and impressive time at Gulfstream for someone who kind of, knows what the relative times should be. That's a very impressive effort. My main question is, when I remember briefly looking at that race, outside of the 9 and 12 in that spot, a lot of them either hadn't done much or were firsters that didn't really have anything that indicated they were going to be legit. So that would be my one concern, is just the distance and also the step up in competition. That being said, trained by D'Angelo, costs $200K. And, something I talk about all the time as being Mr. South Beach is I usually know my stuff when it comes to Gulfstream horses. And if I'm on them at all, they're usually pretty live. And usually I'm able to put my bias aside and say when I think Gulfstream horse isn't going to run. So I think Chris Couples, I completely understand what you're saying about, taking a swing on her. I don't blame you at all. I think for me, and Kyle, you can speak to it too, because we both have the horse in third. I think it was more about the strength of schedule and what we've seen from the 1 and 9 about why this horse we only have in third than anything she did wrong, because her debut was fantastic and I could absolutely see her win. I just kind of want to see it again first against tougher.
Yeah, trust me, I completely get it. But yeah, if she's as good as she showed there, 9-2. I don't know if she'll go off at 9-2.
She will not be 9-2.
But the other, but the 1 and the 9 will take money, so she won't be. If she's going to be third choice, she can't be lower than something like 3-1, 7-2. So I still think if you like that horse, you're going to get paid no matter what. So I think that's definitely one way to look at it. I'm going 1-9-4. Charlie's going 9-1-4 in race number 10 at Churchill on Saturday. In terms of other horses in that race, I mean, there's really like I said, it's a main race. Praying is one you mentioned, but again, it's probably not going to get the setup. She's a funky drummer for Illinois and Arlington legend Larry Ravelli. Ran well on turf, I think best on turf. However, has sat a stalking trip before at Prairie Meadows, so maybe could be one to take a look at least underneath. And other than that, I really don't see anybody having the setup that they need to win that, at least on the win end in that race. So she has to prove herself. Chris Couples, absolutely. She said, you guys are right. She has to ship and prove herself, but likely never get this price on her again, which is completely fair. And I agree with you too. 5-2 after working 47-1 and 35-4 for 3 or whatever, because Jose D'Angelo likes to do that 3 furlong work before the race to get him in gear. And I could completely agree with you at that point. So definitely a couple in this race that can win in the Fern Creek. However, looks to be between the 1 and the 9. And if the 4 has it, the 4 is your third most likely winner, at least in my eyes. Guys, let's move to race number 11. This is the feature of the card. It's the Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes, going mile to 16th on the dirt for 2-year-old males. So again, basically just exactly the same race as the Goldenrod, however, for males this time. And it's a field of 10 with the returning Breeders' Cup starter and Ohio-bred Jonathan's Way at 5-2 on the morning line. Your second choice is the number 8, First Resort for Luis Saez and Owen Hardy at 9-2. And your third choice is the number 3, Tiz-tastic for Christian Torres and Steve Asmussen at 5-1. Charlie, switching over our picks now. I swear to God, guys, we do not see each other's picks before these come out, which just makes it even more hilarious. I don't know about you, Charlie. I honestly really wanted to pick Filoso on top. 8-1 morning line, run against monsters. I really wanted to put him on top. However, I love Jonathan. I really like Jonathan's Way in the Breeders' Cup. Didn't show up that day. However, I still think he's very, very talented. So I couldn't get myself to pull away from him but I think the 5 horse we have in second is going to be live.
I mean, what I'll say is I haven't, narrowed it down. I know Howard did his little show, and something I've been doing on the side is, doing some of my own homework and making some research for horses that are intriguing for my Derby list. And I will say in here, there's 2 horses, and they're both in my top 3 here, and it's not Jonathan's Way that I'm, at least in this race specifically, keeping my eye on as potential horses that I would put Derby futures on. Not necessarily my, main choices, but horses that have gathered my, gotten my attention, and horses that I'm going to be watching very carefully going forward. So I completely agree with you. Filoso in particular, I think, is the one that caught my eye the most. So I'm happy to see that we're like, I think ultimately the reason I landed on Jonathan's Way is I want to start by saying that I think in a race this open, I think because there is a lot of talent, I don't like the price of 5-2, and I think you'll get around that price. So vertically, I would not touch Jonathan's Way at that price. Obviously, the effort was not good last time. Had no excuses, really. Had a cold pace for a horse that was, right there and just really never fired the entire time. Took decent money.
Wow.
Obviously, when we played in the competition, to some extent, had this horse as an option, and we never really had a chance.
Well, that's what I was going to say was many things happened in that race where we didn't think it was even possible to have a cold pace. And then, then one horse sniffs dirt. The other ones don't break, and the next thing you know, there's a horse running on the lead for fun, going 47-4 at freaking Del Mar. But again, soft spot. Sorry, my apologies.
No, you're good. You're good. But so the reason I like Jonathan's Way though a lot in this spot, and I'm curious what you think, is this race I would almost call the Charlie Freeman Stakes to an extent, in the aspect that there's so many horses I like for their closing ability or stalking ability. And you know me, I hate speed, especially going longer. The problem is, again, like I was saying, the reason why I'm saying this would be like my kind of race is it's a lot of horses that want to stalk and sit off the pace. And the issue is, I mean, time form obviously disagrees with me, but to me, I just really see some cheap speed. I mean, I'm not saying there's nobody that's going to go, but for me, I see some long shot cheap speed that's not going to do much. And then I see Jonathan's Way sitting, well, actually, I guess it does have that right. I see Jonathan's Way sitting right off the cheap speed. And then the horses that we like having to do too much work. And that's my big concern is I just think if Joel Rosario just has Jonathan's Way kind of do something a little more forward than the debut, but not obviously as forward as the effort 2 back, and just has Jonathan's Way, sit 2-3 lengths off the cheap speed, I just think he's going to save all the ground on the rail, get the jump on the rest of our horses. And as much as I love Filoso, and I'm obviously I'll let you talk on it, you do too, and as much as I like Render Judgment, the reality with Filoso, especially in that East Avenue race, I mean, that horse flew from like New York into that, Kentucky race to get up for third, came from the clouds. And that's just kind of the running style of a lot of these other horses that I like. Is they're going to have to come from the clouds, and I'm just worried they're going to have too much to do. That being said, Filoso at 8-1, I'll let you go into it more as well, I think is a crime. I thought ran a really nice third in that. Yeah, I thought ran a really nice effort in that third. The debut was rough and didn't take money, but, toss it. It's a debut. Only going 6 furlongs for a closer is tough to make happen. Obviously, for a firster, though, it makes sense to not debut at a mile. Then they stretch out to a mile for second time out. Horse loves it, sits a perfect stalking trip and goes right by. And then last time, again, in the race that was really just East Avenue and Ferocious going at it, and it really just looked like a 2-horse race. Nobody else did any running. And then when you go back and watch that replay, all of a sudden you see this horse in third just come flying from the clouds, and you're like, well, who's that horse? Now I got to look into it. And sure enough, that's Filoso. And for me, honestly, if I'm getting at least 9-2, I would consider putting, even though I think this race is wide open, I would have to put some sort of wager on Filoso because I think this horse is really talented.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I don't think we're getting 8-1. However,
we're not.
I think Filoso is very talented. Again, just nowhere near the pace last time. Came flying behind East Avenue and Ferocious. 2 horses I think have a ton of talent. So being third behind them, even by 9.5 lengths, still you're betting on, you're not in a race with East Avenue or Ferocious in this race. However, I do think Jonathan's Way is very, very talented. But one thing that does concern me a little bit, and actually Chris Couples brought it up, was that he said he doesn't know. For him, he said Jonathan's Way is a toss for me. A horseman's pet peeve for him. Can't bet a horse that going 2 turns that has no neck. The one that I wanted to look at was the last sentence that said he just doesn't visually look like a 2-turn horse, where 6 furlongs, he won very, very well at Saratoga, which is what turned everyone on to Jonathan's Way. Then in the Iroquois, won that race on the lead and beating Owen Almighty, who's a very nice horse. Then in the Breeders' Cup, but again, if I honestly 5-2 is a fine price for me on a horse like this. If he's as talented as I think he is, I'd be willing to take a 5-2 win bet on this horse all day long. However, the one concern I have is that I don't know if he's a 2-turn horse. Again, both commanding wins came at 1 turn, and then it's the Breeders' Cup. So I'm willing to give him one more chance. If I don't know if I'm getting 5-2, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes off nowhere near that. People love to see Breeders' Cup. People love to bet that type of stuff. So I don't think you're getting 5-2. However, if he does go off 5-2, this is my ding, 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 Charlie, the irresponsible wager of the week, ladies and gentlemen. 5-2 on this horse would be very good for me. However, I don't think I'm getting anywhere near that. So therefore, I can't put him anywhere near my best bets. Veloso, again, I touched on it a little bit. Completely agree with you, Charlie. However, that setup is going to be a question mark. But if the pace does set up like Timeform thinks, Veloso is definitely my value of this race. It's just a matter of what price will he go off at post time, because I don't think it's going to be 8-1. Dapper Moon's the horse I have in third, Charlie, so I'll talk first and I'll let you finish up. Dallas Stewart, Ricardo Santana Jr., who was unfortunately donut so far out of 17 starts. This is a horse that ran in the Breeders' Futurity against East Avenue, Ferocious, and Filoso. Then came back in the Street Sense. Actually headed the lead, just maybe went a little bit too early. Ended up losing to Sovereignty and just getting passed by the number 3, Tiztastic, the horse to just his inside in this race. But came back. This horse is working very well. Dallas Stewart's not one to have his horses work forwardly like this. So still catching my eye, willing to give one more chance, and especially with that main special weight at Saratoga going 7 furlongs, winning by 5. Very nice. And Guns Loaded came back to win that race, the race after that as well. So again, on the live race, Charlie, those motorcycle guys outside are making me upset. I swear to God.
I don't love it either.
But 7, just don't know if this horse wants 2 turns either. But again, 8-1, willing to give this horse another shot at least underneath if you're playing vertically in exactas and trifectas. Clock Tower, Charlie, a horse we mentioned before on this show for Wesley Ward, we don't have anywhere. 6-1 for Brendan Walsh, Sconic Skedaddle, we don't have anywhere. You went with the number 9, Render Judgment, who actually someone brought up in the chat earlier that I saw. TC Markham brought it up. Render Judgment for McPeak is good at this distance. Last time at Churchill, this mile to 16th distance was very kind to him, and he ended up winning pretty impressively.
Yeah, I think Render Judgment is a very intriguing horse. Obviously, it was almost 40-1 on debut and lost to Bilt, who shout out to the host of the show later tonight, Noah Maher, who was a big fan of Bilt. Ran a really nice second, just came from the clouds in that one. And it's funny because when I watched that effort, the first thing I thought was, McPeak might have something with this horse. He just needs him to, stretch him out to, a mile plus. And then that's exactly what he did. Horse showed a completely different side to him, which I love seeing versatility that early on in his career. And he was able to sit more of a stalking trip and be closer to the pace, which was needed as well because they did not go very fast. And quite honestly, if he tried to sit the effort that he did, 2 back or on his debut, he probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere near it. It ended up going by, I understand only won by, half a length, but the reality is the horse that finished second was very game. And the horse finished third, limited edition, who we'll get to in the next race, is a horse that I am very high on. So for me, beating, limited edition is something that catches my eye alone. I think Render Judgment makes a ton of sense. We talked about Filoso being 8-1 is crazy. I think Render Judgment at 12-1 is absurd as well. I think because this horse wasn't cheap, because of the win last time and because of the McPeak with Hernandez Jr. connection, I don't think we'll get 12-1, but I think we'll probably get 8-1, somewhere around there. Again, that's why for me in this race horizontally, even though there's some horses I'm really high on, I would spread. I just think there's some really talented horses. And then one other one I'll briefly touch on was Tiztastic, because this was the one I thought about putting in third. Ran a very decent second, close with Dapper Moon. Also lost to Sovereignty, who was just on another planet in that race, and quite honestly is just a much better animal than those horses, and is another one who I really like Sovereignty down the line. But, ran a very decent effort. My big knock, I don't know about you, Kyle, was I just think 5-1 is too sharp for my blood. I just feel like for a horse who ran toe-to-toe with Dapper Moon, and you could argue Dapper Moon was maybe a little more impressive because Dapper Moon was the one to take initiative to try to, make that bold move to get the win, and for them to finish neck and neck, and I'm getting 5-1 versus 8-1. I would rather have Dapper Moon at those odds, but I still think Tistastic makes some sense in this spot.
Well, and you look back, even in his main race, who did he face in his main race?
Yeah,
Chance McPatrick. That ring any bells to anybody? Then comes back again, runs very well on the turf, 2 wins. Then you mentioned runs a very nice second to Sovereignty, who's a very nice runner there. Still being backed on the dirt at 5-1, almost 6-1. Asmussen teams up with Torres, as he likes to do. So definitely one to look to. Maybe just running into monsters, and you come into this race in a fast pace where it should the pace should melt, and Tistastic could be the one to pick up. It's just a very interesting race, and no matter which way you look at it, you're going to definitely want to get paid. And Jonathan's way, while might be the best horse in the race, probably not the best value in the race, because I don't think he's going off at 5-2. Charlie, I love our Filoso pick at 8-1. Definitely could win this race. And TC Markham, the other City of Light Derby hopeful. I don't disagree with you by any means. And high risk, man. Thanks so much for joining the show. Back again, greatly appreciate it. He says Irresponsible Wager should be a weekly segment, and see, we're making it. We're trying to.
As long as you and I are on it, will we? Because I still have one coming up. You use yours. I got mine coming up.
Oh, trust me, I don't disagree with yours either. Spoiler alert. Funny enough, we're in agreement. Charlie and I are in agreement again today. It's crazy. We are making it into a weekly segment, or trying to high risk. So appreciate that. We'll move on to the last race of the sequence, race number 12. But in race 11, I'm going 2-5-4. Charlie's going 2-5-9. Guys, moving into race number 12. But before we do, if you guys are enjoying the show, please go down below the video player here on YouTube. There's a bunch of you watching over on X. If you could, after the show, please come over to youtube.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Click on this episode, and please give us a thumbs up to show that you guys are enjoying the content we're putting out. Again, completely free to do, and it really just is the easiest way to show us that you guys are enjoying the content. So we greatly appreciate it. Race number 12 is another really nice 2-year-old maiden special weight. This one going long, which is very, very intriguing, of course, for your Derby trail, going with a full field of 12 with the morning line favorite, the number 4, Kalahari Dreams, for Joel Rosario and Phil Bauer at 3-1. Second choice, the horse Charlie's already touched on a little bit, is number 3, Limited Edition, Gaffleone and Brendan Walsh at 7-2. Third choice is the number 6, American Promise, Luis Saez, and the coach, Dwayne Lucas. Charlie, we've done it again, my friend. We're 4 out of 5 today, and the other ones the one we don't have, we're basically going against each other in what we think is a match race. So it's more just really funny to me. Again, we don't see each other's picks at all. But Charlie and I are obviously thinking on the same wavelength today. Limited Edition. Charlie, I'm sure you watched this replay. Lost to American Promise last time, however, just kind of a lot of the horses got the jump on him, although did close very well at the end for third.
Yeah, in both his races. If you look back at his debut, he came from the clouds, was 8 lengths off the leaders in the stretch, and flew up for second. And I mean, I don't know if you can show that, but the way he got up for second in that race caught my eyes. And then again, closed up nicely last time out. Yeah, folks, if you didn't know yet, considering I said it's coming up and this is the last race of the sequence, this would be my irresponsible wager of the weekend and for the sequence. I love Limited Edition. I would be shocked if he is not the favorite come closing.
Yeah.
You get Walsh and Gaffleone for a Godolphin bred and owned horse who, has experience at this distance already, and seems like one who truly loves this distance, to be honest with you. I don't think the 4 is a bad horse by any means. I know I don't have the horse in my top 3, but I was between putting that one in third or the 1, and I just didn't want to put the favorite in third. I'd rather pick a price. But quite honestly, I am shocked this one was not the morning line favorite. I would have set Limited Edition at 9-5 in this spot, to be honest with you, morning line. I agree with Katie. This horse, I don't know if I would take that risk, just because I would potentially have a single earlier with good cheer already, but on a press-up ticket, we talk about ticket construction. Yeah, I would 100% single this one. I know Limited Edition doesn't have big buyers yet. I understand he's 0 for 2 so far and, is taking money, but I just think he's a horse that when I visually watch is one that's, still figuring things out, still getting better, and just will in every effort get better. And I think he's just sitting on a monster effort where you're like, wow, that horse does not belong with the rest of it. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm going to say something bold, and I don't care. I think Limited Edition could compete with the field in the race before. I genuinely do. I think he lost by 3 lengths to Render Judgment, and as you said, a lot of those others already got the jump on him. I don't think he would win that race necessarily. I'm not going to go that far, but I do believe limited edition, if he was running our featured graded stakes race, and I'm saying this is a horse who hasn't won yet, I think he could put up a legitimate fight and wouldn't surprise me if he was at least in the money in that race. So I love him in this spot. Irresponsible wager. I wish I could lock in 7-2 now. I will lock it 7-2.
Probably not, but I mean, like I said, there's other This is just on paper. This is a pretty wide open race. I mean, 3-1 morning line. There's 3 horses within 5-1. It's just on paper alone, it looks like a pretty open race. So you might get 3-1, maybe 5-2 unlimited edition, which again is still a decent price.
I would take that.
So TC Markham says hammering a Render Judgment limited edition double could be very lucrative, yet very profitable, TC Markham. So, I mean, you go through the lines, right? Paul Conlon says, now that is irresponsible speculation, is what Paul Conlon says. Paul, I love that, man. That's awesome. Look, I'm on limited edition as well. Like I said, this is one that Wall started at the mile, didn't just get enough in there, started out pretty far back. Got a little bit farther into the race next time out at Churchill, going a mile and a 16th. Just didn't end up getting there. But again, going against Render Judgment and American Promise, of course, in this race. Render Judgment is the horse we talked about last race. A lot of stuff going for limited edition in this race. I like the stalking trip that this horse should get. And there is a pretty decent amount of horses that want to go, or at least look for the lead in this race. So limited edition, I agree with you completely, Charlie. I don't have quite as big of a opinion on him as you do. However, I do like him on top, and I would take every single, and I don't think so, but I would take every single bit of that 7-2 and definitely would probably place a wager on that horse. Kalahari Dreams is a horse you mentioned. In passing, you don't have anywhere. I understand it's the favorite on the morning line, most likely be second choice. However, that 78 last time out is no joke. Going 6 furlongs, I actually like the stretch out for this horse. There's only a couple horses that have come back, but one of them was Canisius, came back in a claiming effort for Rick Dutrow, ended up winning by 4.5 lengths. And again, even though at the maiden claiming level, still something to take into consideration. A very nice improvement from debut to second race out of a Ghost Sapper mare. So, distance should not be any type of issue for Kalahari Dreams. Being able to sit stalking trips at the 6 furlong distance, now getting to the mile and the 16th distance, should be pretty decently forwardly placed. And if this horse could get a jump on a horse like limited edition, who's already shown at this mile and the 16th distance to run mid-pack, I think Kalahari Dreams could be the one to spoil Charlie's irresponsible wager of the week, just based on the trip that I think Kalahari Dreams might get in this race. And TC Markham, second-itis is and country. Yeah, and I like that, TC. That's kind of funny. Like Country House, like his papa. It gets Kalahari as second-itis like his papa, is what he said. However, I think that's just something to keep in mind. And my dude, see, this is the problem with having such a smart chat, is they're taking my steam out of my mouth. He says, Chris Couples put in the chat, Kalahari Dreams has also been Jonathan's Way's workmate all year, but second best, of course, each work. And if I like Jonathan's Way so much, Kalahari Dreams should follow right behind. And again, even though I think limited edition is going to beat him in this one, I still think Kalahari Dreams is very talented. Charlie, I'll let you finish up. American Promise is a horse I have in third, you have in second, and you mentioned that you put the one in third just based on price. So would love to hear what you like about that horse at 10-1.
Yeah, so with the 6 and the 1, also both coming out of the Render Judgment race, coming out of the limited edition race. Now, Buzz Rocket is even more of a closer than limited edition is. This one, broke slow on debut. So at first I thought, okay, maybe he's not, that slow. He just had a bad break. And then I watched second start, and he genuinely just does not have early speed. I mean, the only reason I would even say he's a Derby horse is not that he's a Derby horse level. He's a Derby horse, and that's how much distance he might need to actually be able to have a chance, because he does not have any early speed. That being said, I think he makes a ton of sense if you want to use this horse underneath in exactas and tries. There's a lot of horses that want to go, and he needs pace to have any chance to run well. You look at his debut where they did go a lot faster. he got up for fourth by 3 lengths in his second time out where they went a lot slower. He couldn't close. That's another reason why I love limited edition. But going into American Promise, look, this one hasn't really done anything too wrong, but also just hasn't wowed you. Now, what I like about American Promise is out of all the horses that are going to go forward, he's the only one that's been able to actually prove he can take to the distance. And obviously, was really game last time and showed a different side of him completely from his first 3 efforts, where I would have tossed him off those. Did not look good. Ran against Chancellor, though. Ran against Filoso. So he's gone against some really tough horses, but kind of always just shriveled up and kind of, packed it up and went home when it got too difficult. But last time out, took it right back to Render Judgment and, went the whole way and nearly got the job done, who, again, is a horse that I like underneath in the featured race. It makes sense. My one concern, though, was, and again, this is the reason I'm upgrading, the 3 in here, limited edition even more, is you can see with the fractions and visually watching, like they walked on the lead. I mean, 24 and then almost 49 and then a minute 14. Like they were not going fast at all early on. And then Render Judgment just took advantage by stalking off that trip. Whereas, again, a horse who's more of a closer, like limited edition, just genuinely had no pace to go into. And I think that's part of the reason he was a little closer last time out, was because there was just no pace. And Tyler G understood if he tried to sit as far back as his debut, when you're going 24 and 49 compared to 23 and 46, there's no way you're getting there. So I like with all the speed, especially from your 4 horse. I'm thrilled that the 4 is in this race because the more speed, the better for limited edition. But yeah, that's where I think the 6 is interesting because it's the only speed horse who's shown the distance. And then the 1, again, could pick up some pieces, with a meltdown.
Yeah, I mean, this one, the 1 Buzz Rocket is the horse that has had no early speed at all. But again, Bill Mott started this horse at a mile to the mile and a 16th. Now here, you're right. If the pace does heat up, this is the one that's going to pick up pieces late. However, just don't know how quick this pace is actually going to be because in my eyes, I don't see it getting that fast. I'm going 3-4-6. Charlie's going 3-6-1. Charlie, going into your best bets here, my friend. You have a race 9, a double 3-9, which of course is singling, trying to find value with that number 3 Good Cheer that we always try to talk about in this race and on this show. And you are going with the number 9 Impulse Buy, which again, funny enough, you'll see that in a second. Race number 12. And again, you talked about your irresponsible wager of the week, a win in the number 3 limited edition in the last race.
Yeah, so again, we talked about Good Cheer. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, Kyle, but I think we would agree there's a legitimate argument, even though limited edition would be my irresponsible wager, that you could argue Good Cheer is probably the most likely winner in the sequence. There's still some other talented horses, but I just think there's a reason, that she's 4 to 5 on the morning line, why people in the chat were saying to single her, and she makes a ton of sense. That being said, for a horse that I think will probably go off somewhere in the range of 3 to 5, 4 to 5, like you said, you got to create value. And with Impulse Buy, I'm not picking the favorite. Even if Impulse Buy does go off his co-favorite, that double, I'm hoping for at least somewhere in that 6 to 7 to 1 range, even 5, 6, 7 to 1, somewhere around that range, which I would happily take. And again, I think Impulse Buy on the cutback with a lot of horses that are more true sprinters should take advantage of it. I think is the class of the race. Obviously, like you said, the question is, can she show the ability to pass? To me, it's about that she's ran against monsters and doesn't have any quite as difficult in this spot. I like her a lot, so I'm playing that double. And then again, limited edition, can't say enough good things about him. I think he's just sitting on a massive effort, and I wouldn't even be surprised if he wins by enough that he finally breaks into even at least being on the Derby trail. I'm not saying he is a Derby contender, but I'm saying he's not really on any books yet because, he hasn't broken his maiden yet. And I think this could be one where he really sort of, especially on a day where, the featured race is the race before, so a lot of people are going to be tuning in. So, I really do hope, for my sake, people don't, but I wouldn't blame them if they do tune into, that last race that people normally overlook. Might not be a bad one. Most people might only pay attention to the feature for, potential Derby futures, but look out for limited edition because, my irresponsible wager obviously has to be one of my best bets.
Well, of course it does. And you'll see mine. Mine's in a different format. However, limited edition, 7 to 2, 3 to 1, 5 to 2, whatever he's going to be. Definitely, obviously, my top pick as well. Going to be live. Race number 9, going with that double 3-9. Of course, Charlie, good luck with your best bets. And the funny thing is that we're kind of similar on the first one. However, not because I don't want the 9 in my top. I'm going race number 9, a big double with 3-1. That's still trying to find value with Good Cheer. Instead, I'm using Echo Sound and a big double. And Chris Couples, if She's So Spicy ends up being spicy, I don't want to lose to that horse. If that horse breaks and wins for fun, if she's that talented, I don't want to lose to that one. So 3-4 will be my smaller insanity double is what I like to call it. And then race 11 at Dutch Exactas 2-5 and 5-2. That's Jonathan's Way and Filoso. Just basically an exacta box. However, doesn't matter. I want to play it in a more budget friendly way than boxing it, because if the 5-2 pays 3 times more than the 2-5 and then 2-5, there's no reason for me to play it with the same amount of weight. So I would play, the Dutch Exacta 2-5 for 30 and the 5-2 for 10 or something like that to be able to get where if whatever it comes in, it does not matter to me, if it comes 5-2 or 2-5. So again, race 9 double 3-1 and smaller one 3-4, and a Dutch Exacta 2-5 and 5-2 in race number 11. That's Jonathan's Way and Filoso, 2 horses we've talked about at length. So any irresponsible future wagers from Paul Conlon? Paul, you'll have to tune into Monday night, my friend, because that is the horse that the podcast is going with. Monday night, Howard talked about his the horses he liked going in and his end up future wager for the Kentucky Derby. Just like last year, we had Sierra Leone, which don't even start. I can't believe I even said his name. And 2022, they had Tapper Trice, who ended up being second choice again in the Derby as well. So you'll have to tune into Monday night to see who that is. David Barista, David, thank you so much for joining in, my friend. Happy Thanksgiving, fellas, to you as well. Either of you playing the Hawthorne contest this weekend. Unfortunately, I mentioned it on Twitter. I will not be playing this weekend at Hawthorne. I usually do play all their tournaments. However, this Thanksgiving, always the Thanksgiving one is the one that's hardest for me to make. It's, with the family and everything else throughout the entire weekend, it's just super hard for me to make it back out to Chicago to play the Hawthorne contest. Howard and Matt Miller are both playing, so keep an eye out for them. Of course, feel free to go say hi. They're going to be playing at Oakbrook, if I remember correctly, but Howard and Matt will be playing this weekend. Unfortunately, I will not be. Too many family obligations to go through. Charlie, one thing I want to talk about real quick, and you want to talk about as well. We'd be remiss if we didn't touch on the big game coming up on Saturday, Ohio State, Michigan. Of course, me being a Michigan fan, you being an Ohio State student, I've had a little bit more of a dog in a fight these last couple years. Unfortunately, this year, it seems like we have a Walmart greeter throwing the ball, so it kind of makes it a little bit rough. However, Ohio State should win this one, but God, would I love it if they just stuck it to them and just said screw you, Ohio, and just play spoiler more than winning for the sake of national championship in this one for Michigan.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest. I definitely wish, that team up north had lost another game because that way they would need to beat Ohio State to be bowl eligible, and I know they won't. So it is a little unfortunate that we can't prevent, that team from being bowl eligible. That being said, I kind of feel like the total and the spread speak for themselves. From my time here, obviously, I know that Ohio State's been 0-3, but I also know every game the spread has been, relatively close. Neither team has been a major favorite. However, I'm looking at it right now, and Ohio State is -20.5, and the over-under is 44.5.
Oh,
so that's a pretty sizable spread. I saw some stats there. It's got to be the biggest the spread has been in a very long time. I think the only other time it was even close to that was the COVID year. And if you remember, that was the year that Jim Harbaugh famously claimed that they couldn't play the game, and so the game was canceled because in reality he just didn't want to watch Ohio State make the scoreboard go to 3 digits, which I get. I wouldn't want to lose 100-0 either. But look, again, now admittedly this is an alleged quote, but I don't know. I'm sure you know the great Woody Hayes. As he put it best, allegedly put it best in a game. Again, I've seen conflicting reports if it's true or not, but he allegedly had said when he was asked why he tried to go for 2 when Ohio State was up like 50-14 or 50-16 against that team up north, he said, because I couldn't go for 3. And I just think regardless of which side you're on, I think you would agree, Kyle, that's kind of what this rivalry is all about. There is no nicey. There is no sportsmanship. There is no, the game's already out of hand. Unfortunately,
that's rivalry in college football.
Yeah, and I remember, that's why they call it the game. And I remember I witnessed it my sophomore year. That team up north scored a late rushing touchdown when the game was already out of reach. And then they planted the flag in the center of the O to really try to, talk their shit. But I'm very excited for this year. I know OSU and Ryan Day got some heat for the Indiana game because of them scoring a late touchdown to pour it on. when Ohio State is up 20 plus or 30 plus, I fully expect us, even though we would have the Big Ten championship ahead of us, I fully expect to keep the starters in and pour it on. I genuinely, until that scoreboard for Ohio State has 3 numbers, until they hit 100, they should keep scoring. Even then, if it gets to 100, why not see if the numbers go any higher? So I think they will destroy them. The run game for Michigan is, oh, shit. Well, that team up north isn't as good as it normally is. They don't have a quarterback.
Yes, everyone.
As you said, they don't have a quarterback at all. They have one of the worst quarterback rooms in the country. Their defense is fine, but the reality is they've lost to a lot of teams a lot worse than Ohio State. And I hope Ohio State does unspeakable things to them. I hope there's no sportsmanship, and I hope they send them home crying.
Look,
I'm excited for it.
Look, 20.5 points is a lot of points, and and Michigan. The thing is that Michigan's defense is good. Their quarterback is terrible. Their running game is good, as it always is. Problem is that I don't think they're going to win. I'll just blatantly say that. Problem is that 20 points is a lot of points. So if Michigan's defense shows up like they normally do, Michigan gets 4 field goals, and it's a 28-12 game. Even though it's Ohio State the entire time, that's still plus spread, right?
No, I hear that. I think like what you're saying, and I agree, is I think their only method, not even to necessarily victory, but to keep it competitive, if we're just being unbiased, is they need to try to run the football and keep it as low possession and least amount of possessions for each team as possible. Because the reality
if that's
Ohio
not the
State,
game plan, dude. If that's not the game plan,
no, it has to.
I don't know what
there's no way that they're looking at their passing game and saying, you know what, let's try to go tit for tat. Because again, regardless of which team you're a fan of, nobody in their right mind thinks Michigan can throw with Ohio State. You know what I mean? Let's just be realistic here. So their only method of victory or keeping it close is like you're saying. They got to pound the rock. They got to use their physical defense and just try to make it a game that's like you said, like 20-10 or something. That's how they keep it close. The reality is, I think their issue with their run game this year has been not that it's bad, but I think the reason it's gotten worse per se, and I think you would agree, is because no team is scared of them throwing the ball. I know I've watched plenty of film on them this year. Teams stack the box on them over and over again and basically just say throw the football, and they can't make them pay because they don't have a passing game. So I'm very excited for it. I would be very disappointed if they score more than 10 points. That would be pretty embarrassing. I'd love to see them shut them out. I might even place a small wager on Ohio State to win by shutout because it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, look, you have a top 5 defense against one of the worst passing offenses in the country. They honestly, they should have just embraced the triple option. They should have tried to be like Army or Navy and tried that offense with how bad
that's basically what they are at this point. I mean, well, tell you what, that Michigan's won by running game in the past. I'm not
the Penn State
that they'll win this game.
Once in the second
half.
Well,
yeah, exactly. And everyone said JJ McCarthy is a bum, and I still don't think he's a bum. I think he just didn't have to throw the damn ball. If you don't have to throw the ball, why are you throwing the ball?
Oh, I wish Noah was here. TC just talked some crap about Kentucky.
Yeah, that'll be but she said fading Kentucky Wildcats limp into the weekend to get drilled at home by Louisville. There we go.
Well, Noah's already in basketball season. I've talked to him. He's been out of football season since your wedding, since they lost that narrow game to Georgia. He hasn't been paying attention since.
Yeah, I bet. And you guys were watching that on the dance floor at my wedding. You guys had it up in the freaking phone.
If they beat
you guys
Georgia,
are bobbing
that's
side to side
win.
and have it here. It's just making it fun, dude. It's hilarious. But no, it was a big game. But either way, that'll be fun. Obviously, Thanksgiving football, Black Friday football as well. Seeing the Bears hopefully keep it close against the Lions. If you guys followed me on Twitter, you guys saw I went to that. I actually was at that Bears game last weekend, and God, was that awesome. I mean, seeing that onside kick recover, like we thought, it was 27-16 or whatever it was. We thought we were completely done.
I was watching it with Howard.
Thought we were completely done. And then all of a sudden, like I said, we were like, all right, they're going to go down and score. And then we're all going to get so much hopium. We're going to get they're going to lose the onside kick. They scored. We're like, all right, cool. The onside kick's not going to be recovered. And then they did, and then it hits off his foot, and we all go nuts. And then DJ Moore catches the ball. Then they kick the field goal, and we're all like, oh my god, holy shit, we're gonna win. And then then they do that. So, but should hopefully be a competitive game tomorrow. That's all I really want. Yeah, I did. I also stayed for overtime. I actually had I was very lucky to get very nice seat. There he is. There he is. I was very lucky to have. I had front row seats, courtesy of Miller. Front row seats to that game. We were, as a kid, I'm always I want to be the guy that sit on the camera that's pounding the tarp as in third downs, and I actually got to be that guy. So that was very, very fun. And again, super lucky for the connections and seats that I had to put me into that game. So it was just very fun. And hopefully, again, we can keep competitive on Thanksgiving. 3 games and then a game on Black Friday. So good luck however you guys play college football and NFL, and hopefully hopefully Blue can bring out something that's just insanity. That probably won't happen, but God, would I love it if it did. But that'll do it for episode 108 of Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please go down below the video player, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're live every single week. We have at least 3 episodes here on the HHH Racing Podcast every single week, if not more. Again, you'll have to subscribe and hit the notification bell for that. For my co-host, Charlie Freeman, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, episode 108 of Bettin and Boozin, covering Churchill Thanksgiving Saturday's late pick 5 with 2 grade 2s and a little bit of football talk at the end, talking about the game and NFL Thanksgiving week. And until next time, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, stay safe, have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone, eat a lot of turkey, and we will see you guys back next week.